Hi again then guys, and welcome to another specific car review from the newest DLC pack, or the update pack really, from Gran Turismo Sport, the Lamborghini Diablo GT. Briefly the fastest car in the world for a little while in real life back in the 90s, at a similar kind of time as the McLaren F1 and the Jaguar XJ220, and it's a car which I specifically know from a lot of you guys' comments that you really enjoy driving now that it's back in the game. Now, I must admit, I'm not a huge Diablo fan. I don't dislike the car. It's a very good-looking car. It's pretty much the benchmark of Lamborghini in the 90s. And it did, of course, kind of spawn my favourite car in the world, the Chazetta V16T. Because for those who are unfamiliar with that car, the Chazetta's design is actually the Lamborghini Diablo, because Lamborghini purchased the design and then turned it into the Diablo. So the real Diablo is actually the Chazetta, because that car is closer to the original Diablo's design and shape. And of course they are very similar looking cars. Now this vehicle is a speed machine, first and foremost. 210 miles per hour or thereabouts in real life. On Gran Turismo 6, it's one of the quickest top-end supercars in the game. You can pretty easily get it up around 295, 300. But it's a little bit sluggish. You've only got 5 gears to work with. The handling isn't exactly conducive to the best lap times, let's just say, on many tracks. So what kind of changes have been done to it, if any, on Gran Turismo Sport? Because when we covered the McLaren F1, that car's had some great improvements, and it really goes to show the marketing power of a game, even when it comes to cars which the majority of us could never afford, like a McLaren F1. And yet a game can be so instrumental to forming your opinion of a car. It can change it completely. You can have the same car on 2 different games, and on one game you can love it. It could be even your favourite car in the game, and then on another game you might hate it just because of how the car is represented. That has definitely been the case for me. Even cars that I love have been totally different on different games. So the changes that happened to the McLaren did that for me. In fact, it was the best representation of the McLaren F1 that I've ever seen in a racing game, and probably my favourite one since Test Drive Unlimited 1, which also represented the car very well. So what then about the Diablo? Because for super fans of the Diablo, and there were plenty of people who did like it already on Gran Turismo 6, what kind of changes have been done? Have we brought new people on board, or is it more something like a Supra for the die-hard fans, and then other people might happen to like it but not necessarily go out of their minds for it? Well, to some degree, you could say that that's the case, because the Diablo won't necessarily please everyone. But fans of the car, in a similar way to the McLaren, will not be disappointed. First and foremost, you notice, of course, the graphics. When you first see the car, it's updated, it's better, crisper, better lighting, as with all of the cars on GT Sport. So that immediately puts you in a good mood, it gets you in the right feel, the right vibe. Plus now you can slap a nice livery on it, which again just improves the mood. And then once you take it out on the track, the first thing that hits you is the sound. And I know that alongside the McLaren, a lot of you guys really love the V12 sound of this new car. And I meant to mention this in the McLaren review episode, but I forgot to. And that was that one of the best things I think about GT Sport's updated car sounds is actually not the car sounds itself, which are improved, but one of my personal favourite things is actually the echoes. On certain tracks such as Monza or the home straight on the Nürburgring GP course, the echo of an engine is much louder than it was on Gran Turismo 6, and it sounds more like a legitimate echo, and that makes cars that have stuff like V8s, V10s, V12s sound that much better. And in particular with this case, of course, a V12. Now, the V12 in question is a pretty powerful one already, but at the same time not a powerful one as much by today's standards. 571 horsepower is great. In the 90s that was more than an EB110 had, more than the Chazetta had, more than the XJ220 even had. But by today's standards that's literally Gallardo territory. So can it still cut it? Well, yes and no. Because the Diablo has never been a pure track car. Not in its initial form at least. You can turn it into one. The Nomad GT1, which of course has this car's livery, is by definition a track car. It's a full-on race car, But even then, when you drive that car on GT6, you can pretty quickly feel it's not at home on the track. It's one of those cars which can take corners if absolutely necessary, but it's much happier on the straights, using that massive power to just easily overtake the GTRs and Supras in the JGTC classes, which is what that car is. However, with the road-going Diablo, the parameters are much more conducive to using it, because the kind of vehicles which you can go up against will not necessarily be perfect through corners like a race car could be, or at least close to perfect for some people, such as the McLaren. The McLaren is excellent through corners, but not a perfect car. The XJ220, if it comes back to the game, it won't be perfect. It will be good, but not perfect. Others too, like the Ferrari F40, certainly not a perfect car, but a lot of people like using it. It's got that ability to, just like the McLaren, bite back when provoked, but it gives you a lot to work with, in a similar way the Diablo does as well. But the main difference with the Diablo GT, and this is the same as GT6 but actually much better on GT Sport, is that the handling on the Diablo has always been a little bit different to the others, in that instead of being more of a tail-happy, slippery supercar, which you'd probably expect it to be, it's actually the opposite. The front end can be quite heavy on the Diablo, and you can feel the weight of the car. It weighs just under 1,500 kilos, but unlike some modern supercars, which might weigh that amount, you can feel the weight much more in a Diablo. It doesn't really like turning corners as much, as I said just now. But with GT Sport, the handling has definitely been improved. You can flow through corners much more easily, but at the same time, it gives the Diablo the respect which it deserves. And sometimes giving a car the respect which it does deserve and accurately representing it does not mean making it good, because some cars should not feel great. You don't want a TVR, for instance, to be the easiest thing to drive, because that's just not accurate. Likewise with the Diablo, you can slide the tail out, you can overcook it, and in particular, I would warn people about the brakes on this car. Some supercars have very good brakes. The F40 is pretty good, the McLaren is excellent. This one, you need to brake early. Very early in some cases. Once you get that speed going, it does take a while to scrub it off, and of course if you upgrade it even more, that effect will be amplified. Overall though, for 300 grand, it's a lot more attainable than the F40, or especially the McLaren for instance, and doubtless the Jaguar if they do add it. So if you are a Diablo fan, if you're a Lambo fan, it's nice to have a new way to represent the brand. And again, like with the McLaren, you definitely won't be disappointed with it. It offers what you want from a Diablo. It's not too good, but it's definitely improved. So that's it for this pick overall. Of course, I'll see you guys next time, and for now, as always, thanks for watching.